The story of Katie Luther is really a fascinating one, but it's really helpful to go back and look at the whole phenomenon of why nuns and monks were leaving convents and monasteries. First of all, many of them were there more or less involuntarily. They'd been put there as children because perhaps there was no other place to put them, or they didn't have parents, or their parents didn't want them. They were raised there without really having a choice as to their lifestyle. And then something else came into it. In the medieval way of thinking, the lifestyle of a monk or a nun was considered more holy. In other words, those who were in that lifestyle were seen as having left the world, as serving God in a higher or better way than other people, than ordinary people. When Luther came along, he, of course, exploded that idea. Since we can do nothing to gain our salvation, to merit our salvation, the whole idea that we can do something that will be more pleasing to God than an ordinary pursuit is simply anathema to Luther. Now, the result of this is that all sorts of monks and nuns begin to leave monasteries and convents. Now, when women left the convent, the immediate question was, what do you do with them? Women in that age really didn't have a whole lot of options, as we would say today. Women got married. And so when nuns left the convent, they were expected to marry. Okay, so Katie and her fellow nuns leave the convent, and they came to Wittenberg. Now suddenly Luther has a whole group of young women that essentially he has to marry off. He has to find husbands for them, and he's pretty successful. There are various people in town, there are students who need wives, and so one by one they get married off. Katie is a little bit older when she comes out of the convent, and at first she lodges with the Cranachs, the famous painter, and she really learns there how to run a household. And Luther is looking around for a husband for her. There's a student who appears to like her, but his family is not all that enthusiastic about her. I mean, marrying a runaway nun, that was still somewhat questionable. And then there was an older man that was interested in Katie, but she was absolutely not interested in him. Well, time goes on, and you know, eventually, everyone's wondering what's going to happen to Katie, and Katie announces that she will marry either Luther or Amsdorf.
In 1525, Luther got married to an ex-nun named Katharina von Bora. And it's interesting, when he was challenged on this, some of the colleagues in Wittenberg said, this is terrible, it'll ruin the Reformation cause. And no, Luther gave 3 reasons for getting married. And here they are. The number 1 reason, to please his father. Not exactly very romantic, is it? Second reason, to spite the Pope. Again, not too romantic, is it? And the third, as a testimony in behalf of his approaching martyrdom, that marriage was good for all. Now, there you wouldn't exactly find nice verses that Hallmark cards could use for a wedding, congratulations, or anything else. But the Protestant parsonage was founded that day. Don't forget how important that is. And anybody who has a clergyman for a father really had a vested interest in whether or not that particular marriage would work.
And the amazing thing is that this grew into a real love match. Not only did Martin and Katie truly respect each other, they grew to truly love each other. They had 6 children, 4 of whom lived to adulthood. That was typical in those days. About a third of children died before reaching adulthood. And Katie proved to be a very good, a wonderful wife for Luther. She organized his life. She organized his household. You have to understand that dinner at the Luthers was not simply Martin, Katie, and the kids. All sorts of other people lived there. They took in various nieces and nephews. They took in aunts. They took in students. Dinner at the Luthers was usually at least 25 people. Now, you had to be organized to do that. And Katie was organized. She had a garden. She had livestock. She had an orchard. And she brewed beer. I could talk on and on, but
Most of the writings about Luther's life suggest that because he lived such an austere life during his monastic years, that might have contributed to the various medical illnesses that he faced from his 40s, 50s, and 60s. I really think quite the opposite. I believe that his monastic days probably actually were protective of some of the illnesses that he subsequently developed. The metabolic syndrome consists of 4 symptoms: elevated blood sugars, probably due to early diabetes; elevated lipids, that is cholesterol and triglycerides; high blood pressure; and obesity. The 4 of those symptoms develop in people, and it is a great precursor for full-blown diabetes, heart disease, strokes, all of the illnesses which we're seeing so commonly today. He was undergoing spells of severe kidney stone attacks, which probably worsened his general kidney disease. He developed leg ulcers. He developed all sorts of gastrointestinal problems, including severe constipation, hemorrhoids, abdominal angina, which is when you eat food, your blood is pulled to the GI tract as opposed to the heart, and then one develops heart pain as a result of that. I really believe, in looking at the studies about Luther's life and his descriptions of his own medical maladies, that he really probably suffered from metabolic syndrome. Probably Luther's death was caused by what we would today term a myocardial infarction or cardiac thrombosis, a blockage of the blood vessels leading to the muscles of his heart. Because of his metabolic syndrome, elevated cholesterol, I'm sure, and triglycerides, and his blood sugar problems, he developed, I'm sure, very narrow arteries feeding the muscles of his heart, and eventually that caused the collapse of his heart.
This is the path that Luther walked with his friends.
That's right. It's the morning of the 17th of July, 1505. Martin Luther and 4 friends are coming here this way. And Martin Luther stopped in front of the door and said to his friends, bye-bye. So you wouldn't see me in this world, nevermore.
So he cut off his ties with his friends.
And then he go here to the door and knocked. And the monk come in and ask, what you like?
Okay.
And, Martin Luther asked, I would like coming in for a monk.
For a monk.
Yeah. Yeah, and the friends still waiting here about 1 hour.
They thought he was going to come back out.
Yeah, then they don't believe it, that Martin Luther really go in the monastery.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Such a radical change for his life.
Right, a big change.
Shall we go in the door?
Yeah, sure.
So this is the oldest stone house in Erfurt.
Right. That's earlier 12th century. It was a guest house of the monks.
Okay.
And here in the first floor, Martin Luther lived 2 months.
Okay.
Here.
First
we
floor.
don't know exactly where, but we only know that he was
did.
in the first
Okay.
floor. And his father, Hans Luther, stays 2 times here in this house.
Okay. The first time, not so.
The first time he was very angry about
Right.
his son, and he don't like it, that he would like to wish to
be a monk.
be a monk.
and not a lawyer.
And the second time he stayed here with 3 friends from the 1st of May till 3rd of May 1507.
1507.
Then on the 2nd of May 1507, Martin Luther lies his first mass, also his first service, the premise in the church.
Right.
And his father was very proud.
Very proud
Very
now.
proud. His
Now
son
things are
is-
good.
Yeah.
Well, let's go inside and see the church. After you. Wow, this is an impressive room.
Yeah. This is the only room in the whole monastery which we can see as he built 1320, 1330.
So
And
originally
for
as it was.
Every original Martin Luther has saw this room as we know. The floor, it's original. Maybe Martin Luther has standing on this place
Right
where
here.
you are, right there. Yeah.
I don't want to move now.
Yeah.
Well, explain some of the things that are around too.
This room was the most important room for the monks. It was the only room where the monks have to speak, and discussions, for a lot of discussions.
So they were silent elsewhere,
Yeah,
but they could speak
yeah.
here.
Very good.
Okay, let's go to the church.
Okay.
You know, what's so amazing to me is so much of what's here is original. as
It's
you said.
original, and Martin Luther, in the 6 years as he stay here, he was often here in the cloisters, and that's all what we see. It's really original.
So everything that's here,
Everything
it was
that's
here
here.
when he was here.
Yeah.
That's so
Here
amazing.
he come down the stairs.
Down these stairs.
In the first floor is the sleeping room,
His
the
sleeping
dormitorium, and Martin Luther is coming down the stairs and go around here the cloisters or directly
into
the church.
Let's go into the church.
Okay.
Wow. Look at these windows.
Yeah, these windows are the oldest windows in church here in Erfurt. These 3 windows behind the altar from 1310.
Okay.
And this window here on the northern part, it's 1320, 1330.
1300, before America even existed.
Yeah. Over 100 years, yeah.
Yes, and
It's
incredible.
great. It's absolutely great.
Well, tell me more about what we see here.
Yeah, a lot of very important things. This altar, which you can see here, on this altar, Martin Luther lies his first service, the premise, on the 2nd May of 1507. And of this stone, Martin Luther lays.
Now, this particular gravestone is very unique because who's buried here?
This is Johannes Tarry.
So buried here is the person who judged John Hus.
Right. That's right.
And Luther laid on
Laid
this
down
grave.
this
So
grave.
he literally got on this right here.
Yeah.
And so the person who judged John Hus,
Yeah.
Luther actually in many ways followed
Yeah.
in Hus's footsteps as the reformer. What an ironic thing.
That's a historical.
Yeah, God has a sense
That's
of
a
humor.
history.
And
It's great.
But what a sacred place too in many ways. This is
Yeah.
where Luther laid on this particular
a lot of
gravestone.
American guests
They come and lay here?
come and lay here.
I don't think I can. I can touch down on it, but I don't know if I can
Yeah.
get lay down there.
You know what?
Because he was there.
What was a very good story. 202 here in this monastery was the film made with Joseph Fiennes, the young Martin Luther.
It was made
And
here.
here is the original place, and Joseph Fiennes, he was a saint for the first mass, and he should lay down here on this stone.
He laid here.
And Joseph Fiennes said, "Sorry,
I can't.
I can't.
See, I have.
You know, that's too much. Here,
Yeah.
Martin Luther was laid here, and it's not allowed for me.
Wow.
And therefore, in the film,
Okay.
he laid here in the front of
So
the
he laid
stairs.
right here.
Right here.
Oh, see, I can do that.
Yeah,
I can do that.
Genau.
I can do that.
right.
But see, I think, yeah, when you come up and you touch that, I mean, it's very surreal.
It is.
It's very and very spiritual in nature as well. And then finally, is Luther's rose right here? Is that his
The left-
window?
Yes.
Okay.
You see the two lines, and in the middle is a rose.
Okay, there it is right there.
And the lines symbol Jesus Christ, the lines of Judea.
Right.
And Martin Luther takes the rose one to one, and only one change. Here in the original, you can see in the middle the red cross.
Right.
And he made it inside as a sign of the monastery.
Right.
Red heart with a black cross.
So
That's-
that was the sign of the monastery, but Luther
Right.
put the red heart with the cross in the center.
Right.
Very good.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing all that with us today.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed.